How badly do you want super success? This is a lesson I learned from Dan a long time ago, 26 years probably ago. And what he said to me was, super success is not for everybody. And boy, is that ever true. One of the things I've learned over the years working with Dan is just how many people, and particularly when they're so close to the goal line, give up, go do something else, and decide that this is not for them. And I wanted to include a clip here from Dan that goes back a few years. Admittedly, it's self-serving. In one part, he talks about levels of commitment and references me and a level of commitment. And I always listened to that, and it just struck me somewhat strange because I was raised that you say what you're going to do and you carry through and do it. And sometimes, oftentimes, that means that other things have to give way, but you gave your word to do something and you end up doing it. But I found that that is not always the case. And there's a ton of excuses why people decide that they want to do something else and not follow through. Most of the time, although it's a financial reason that's given, it's an emotional bank account issue. And rather than work the problem and find a solution, they often take the easy way out and say, well, I can't continue without trying to fix it. Most of the time, there's a solution. Dan talks about when he makes a commitment, he makes a commitment, and then he says coma death. And what he's referring to there is that those are his two exceptions. If he makes a commitment and he's in a coma, or he makes a commitment and he's dead, that he can't follow through with the commitment, and that makes sense. But I've just seen so many times people end up quitting when they are so close to the goal line. My number one rule in working with people is dependability. I don't care how good they are. I don't care how talented they are if they're not dependable. And the reason for that is, at least in the beginning, you're basically in a honeymoon period, and you want to watch and see how people behave in that period. But later on, and particularly when you're in deals, there are some times that things have to get done, and it's at the expense of family commitments, other commitments that you've made, and you need to set a priority as to, okay, which is most important here. And hopefully, if you're serious about QLA and becoming super successful, you will make those sacrifices. But there is a pay price to action. Does it affect your family? Absolutely. In the end, is it worth it? I believe it is. But I would ask you to think about that. Think about the level of commitment that you're willing to give to QLA and what you're willing to give as a pay price to action. That's important. And remember, at times when you're tested, that's in fact a test. And if you've committed to something, find a way to follow through. Doesn't mean that you have to have the answer. You have a dream team around you. You can explain the situation you're in, and you can say, I've got to find a way out of this box. Usually there's a way out of the box. But remember that dependability is absolutely my first test. I don't even go to a second trait if I don't see dependability in a person. Critically important to success. So here is the clip I wanted to include from a few years back of Dan talking about ultimate level of commitment for super success.
Most of you that are typing in this chat thing and most of you that are listening to me have never been involved in a transaction or a deal so far outside your comfort zone that it made you sick to your stomach, where you threw up. Before the meeting, you had to toss your cookies. Most of you that are on the chat thing and read my newsletters have never been in a deal that was literally life or death financially. Most of you. And I'm not saying you, but the closer you get to those extremes, the higher the probability that you're going to be successful. The higher the probability that you're going to do what it takes. There's a difference, and I've told my children this, and my business partners know this. When Dan Peña tells you, I'll do whatever it takes, that's a different order of magnitude than when your brother-in-law says, yeah, I'll get it done. When I'm sure when Trump, Jobs, Branson, all these other guys that I've talked about, and Ford and going back and Carnegie, when they said, I'll do whatever it takes, it was a different level of commitment. And the difference I see between my generation and the generations that have come after me are commitment. Their definition of commitment. Bruce Whipple and I, although he's a few years younger than I am, have the same level of commitment and going the extra mile. I mean, it's different, you know. Young kids in their 20s, and this is an exaggeration, and I don't mean to paint a brush against all people in their 20s, but when a guy at 28 or 29 says, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes, he means if I don't have a hangover, if I'm not loaded up on fucking drugs, if it's convenient between my tennis and my golf lessons, if my girlfriend, had been giving me regular sex, I mean, that's his level of commitment. When a guy's in his 30s and early 40s, he means, yeah, I'll get whatever done, unless I have to take my daughter to the ballet, unless I have to take my son to the dentist, unless I have to take my wife to the therapist, or unless we got to go to family counseling. There's a difference in level of commitment. When I tell you it's going to get done, it's going to fucking get done. Coma, death. Coma, death. And you want to know the difference between the billionaires and the millionaires? Commitment. The guys that are super successful are super committed. And I'm privileged that I'm still committed. I'm not as committed as I was in my 40s, admittedly. I'm not. I don't, it's tough to work 20 hours a day for 60 days in a row now. But it's certainly not tough to work 20 hours a day for a week or 10 days. I'll do that. But I just can't stay focused for 2 or 3 months. That's why my specialty is the red zone. When you get the ball to the 20-yard line and you want to kick it into the goddamn net, I'm the guy that you come to. I'll get it in the net by hook or by crook. I may have to bash your teeth in, cut your ear off, threaten you, but we'll get the ball in the net. Now just think about that. And all of a sudden everybody's dried up on their chatting. How many are willing to make that kind of commitment? How many want success, to be a high performance person that badly, to make that kind of commitment? I leave you with that question. God bless. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay, so if you have any questions or comments or ideas for future episodes, please email bruce@brucewhipple.com. And if you're not already on our mailing list, head over to brucewhipple.com and sign up and grab any of the free reports. That'll put you on the mailing list. There is a lot of free information you can use to acquire already profitable businesses. This is Bruce Whipple. Thanks for listening to the Business Acquisition Podcast. And remember, you miss 100% of the opportunities you fail to take. And procrastination truly is the thief of time. So do something today, please. Your future self will be proud of you.